have 7 o'clock. I'm calling the meeting to order. First, I would like to welcome our new member this evening, Dan Carpenter. I think most of you know him. He comes to us with 13 years of service on the planning board here in town, and he currently is the chairman of the Economic Development Committee. So, welcome, Dan. We're very happy to have you.
I'm happy to join you guys. Thank you for your warm welcome.
You know everyone, don't you? You know
Yes,
Michael
be
and
careful what you
Dan
ask
Reich
for.
and Tom Allen. Some of our members are out tonight, so. Anyway, the first item on the agenda, we have the Whartons here from 3 Magna Vista Drive. I asked them to come in for 7 o'clock, so why don't you join us at the table?
Well, thank you for meeting with us.
I briefed you all a little bit about this, and Tom Fallon went over there this afternoon to take a look at the site. So the issue is relative to trees that have come down either due to weather events or for one reason or another that they'd like to take and get out of, to remove, and they're all in the, from what I understand, they're all in the buffer zone. Tom took a look today to verify that. So why don't you, and I know you folks have some photos.
Pass the
Sure.
photos on.
I went over there today about 3:35. I was over 3 years ago,
Yep.
about three and a half years
Yep.
ago. So I know them, and I took a look in the back, and as you'll see from these pictures, they're basically all just down trees that are in the brook or on the side of the brook. That one there's got a cluster like 5 or 6 of them.
The last 2 pictures, I think, in the back of the pack, view other people's property. And
So
I think you and Sharon talked about not
Yes.
getting
Putting
into
that
that.
aside.
Right, well,
But
right
we-
now we're interested
Yeah,
in
no,
your
yeah.
issue
No,
resolved.
But we
no,
left
that's
it
why I
in there,
That's
just-
why I pointed it out.
So I understand that from talking with you that one of the trees is uprooted. So you have the actual.
it's that picture right there.
It's the
and
very
there's
first
actually
one.
like probably 5 or 6 of them in a cluster. And
Okay.
It's 5 trees in the,
Now, I did have a second conversation last Friday with Joe Bellino at DEP on this, and Joe had talked to Mary Ann DePinto, who's his supervisor at DEP, and they both said not more than, if, provided the board agrees, not more than 7 trees with the roots to remain intact, except for the one that's uprooted, and to be removed by hand. No sky bucket trucks or anything like that.
well, that
Well,
can't,
and if I can interrupt you, the only trees we're interested in getting rid of are down trees.
Right, and they have to be only ones that are, you know, from the, like, you know, from the edge here.
Right, okay.
Not ones that might be in the, sorry, might be in the,
No, actually, our interest is to maintain as many trees as possible because we have a rather,
large
is
garage.
this the one you were talking about?
Yeah, that's the tree ball.
Okay. Wow. So anyways, and there is an issue involving a neighbor next door, but we can discuss that after.
I can
No, it's
discuss
two
it
houses.
really quickly.
2 houses down.
I left their property and I drove around the corner, parked
Okay.
my truck, went out and took a look, and there's some work going on down there that might merit us going by and taking a site visit. I didn't want to walk on the property because I didn't know what
Without
was town.
permission, right.
But they're definitely right along the edge of the water, and there's quite a bit. It looks like he's got like a wood cutting operation going on.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
so definitely something would be worth checking out.
Do you think it merits an enforcement order?
I think one of us or a few of us should at least go there and look at it first,
Okay,
maybe, just
more
to
than
make,
one?
right. I just think, and I don't know if we can notify the property owner that we notice that there's some work going on right there by the edge of the water and would like to just come by and look.
He'd probably want to be present, I would imagine, but we can try to call him. I have his name, so.
Okay.
Okay. All right, getting back to the matter at hand involving Mr. and Mrs. Wharton, not to keep them here tonight. I guess that, you know, I'm interested in what your thoughts are on this.
Well, I mean, clearly the trees are downed. You know, as long as they can be removed by hand, according to, you know, as set forth by the DEP, then I certainly have no issue with it. I think they should be entitled to do that. Have you actually contacted someone to do it? How do you propose to remove it?
Well, I happened to be driving down Rochdale Street, and a person that I grew up with, Steve Carr, was cutting down trees for Mr. Pappas, the younger Mr. Pappas, and he plans on building a house there. And I stopped and I said, do you cut these trees down? Is he paying you to cut these trees down, or do you just want the wood? And he says, no, I want the wood. So I said, would you be interested in doing it in my yard? And he said he had no problem, but I said I still had to go through all of you people before I could contact him to do it. So he can get his truck down there, just a regular truck, not a massive truck, because of the wires. But it would be with a chainsaw.
Right,
Yeah.
that's what they.
He wouldn't be able to bring a truck right down
No.
to the thing anyways, because it's such a steep
Such
slope.
a-
But
yeah.
he'd definitely be able to cut that up
So-
and do it fairly quickly, I think. And it
Okay.
wouldn't be a big impact on it. That's what my opinion would be.
Okay. Other comments? So again, it's not more than 7 trees, by hand with a chainsaw. Only trees that are down in the buffer zone, and,
And all wood just removed from the site.
right,
Right,
That's fine.
that's fine.
That's what
all
we
we
had
wanted.
Right.
okay. Is there a motion to that extent?
I'll move that we, allow the Warrens to do the work according to those terms.
Sure.
I'll
Is there-
second that.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. All right, thank you folks for coming in, and
Thank
we'll
you.
follow up
Yeah.
on the other issue.
In order to
Proceed.
to guarantee the contract that we're not making this up, do we get a written confirmation of this?
We can do that,
Send a letter.
yeah, because the minutes wouldn't be approved until the next meeting, so would you care to make that a motion?
Yeah, I move that we'll just send a letter confirming what we've discussed this evening, setting forth the terms of what needs to be done to remove the downed trees from the property.
That's excellent.
Okay.
Because
Is there a second on that?
he
I'll
doesn't want
second that.
anything to do with cutting down anything in the wetlands without something in writing.
Sure.
All right, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Okay.
Thanks,
Thank
folks.
you all.
Have a good night.
Thank you for stopping by.
Sharon won't be back to work from Monday, so we'll be
That's fine.
all right. Okay, you too.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good
Have a
night.
evening. Okay, the next item on the agenda was a 7 o'clock continued public hearing, also for Christopher Gervais for 14 Rochelle Street. As you might recall, he had indicated at the last meeting he'd be out of town today. So the only thing I think we had was a pending site visit on this.
Right.
So I didn't know whether you folks had gone or not,
shoot.
or...
I was right over that. I wish I.
Well, actually, Dan, Chuck, and I did go over there.
Oh, good.
And it's it's a steep slope farthest away from the wetland, and as you get closer to the wetland area, it does even out. So, I don't see that. His plan, of course, is to just remove everything from that slope and then replant it with grass and fruit trees, and hopefully keep the invasive trees and brush that is there now from coming back. Good luck with that. But in terms of an impact on the wetland, I really didn't see that there would be one.
Didn't look like anything was moving anywhere.
Okay, okay, good.
Where is this located? Is it right on the corner from Magna Vista?
I don't know if this is accurate.
I'm just looking, like, which house is it? That where your arrow is? Because the house right.
It's right there, the brown one.
It's
right
where
with
the pool is. If there, you can see where the
yeah,
pool
with-
is.
Okay. Yeah.
Which pool?
Yeah.
Oh, it's on the other intersection. Never mind. I was on the other side. If you scroll up a little more, see that house right there? Move your arrow up a little more. Right there.
It's on the corner.
That house on the corner right there is the
Yeah,
house.
Burnett. Burnett.
Yep, right there where your arrow is exactly where
Huh.
we need to might take a peek at.
Okay. So, that being said then, is there a motion to close the hearing?
I moved to close.
Okay. Is there a second? To close the hearing?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted.
And I would move to issue a negative determination of applicability.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstention?
I
Since you
have to
weren't on the
abstain,
board,
yes.
Yes. Okay, Sheila, do you have a signature page for us?
Yes, I do.
Where's Chuck at?
Kid duty.
Kid duty.
I wrote him back an email and said, we might need you, bring your kid.
I said the same thing.
Pass that around.
He didn't respond.
He didn't
Get
give
to
me
work.
Coward.
His son's gonna be getting, old enough where he could,
Yeah, I
Listen-
think Kid
listen
Duty
to
might
us.
be a
Does he
code
just
for
have one child?
yeah.
Bruins.
Where he wouldn't be chewing on your gavel.
How old is he, I wonder?
I don't know, I thought,
22? No,
Well, one would hope not by then.
he's a youth. He's a ute.
Ute.
He's probably 10, 11 years old, I think.
Yeah.
he'd probably be bored to tears. if he
What
had to come.
exactly is a ute?
Sure.
I don't know.
Thank you.
Classic movie.
My cousin Vinny.
Okay, we've got a couple minutes before the 7:15 continued Herb Chambers hearing, so.
Shall we talk about Dale Avenue?
Yes, I didn't see anything in the packet about Dale Avenue, so I didn't know what that was about.
Well, I sent it to Sheila. Sheila,
Mm-mm.
I did.
I see it on the
Yeah.
agenda twice here, Dale
Yeah,
Ave and Dale
I
Ave with
did-
Phil
that was my
O'Connell,
mistake.
All right.
but
All
I
right.
didn't know what it was about.
I received a call from Attorney O'Connell. Oh, must have been last week, and what he wanted to say is that apparently the Conservation Commission back in 1980 issued an order of conditions for the property in Dale Avenue. That order of conditions was never acted upon, and it lapsed just by operational law. And then he had sent me a title report, and I think there might have been a successor filing for that property or a portion of that property. So he's apparently it keeps showing up, or it showed up on the title report. And what attorney I had suggested initially that Attorney O'Connell just indicate that it was never acted upon, that the order conditions had expired, it was never implemented. And he said, well, what we would prefer is a letter from the Conservation Commission just indicating that because the order of conditions was enacted in 1980 but never renewed, that it
Expired.
expired.
There's actually a place that you can check that off on the certificate of compliance, that the order of conditions was never
Mhm.
acted upon, so it's done, clear enough.
Yeah, exactly.
But is that the property where they built the condos
I don't know.
at the end of Dale Ave?
Mm.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
All right, but you've
17 Dale Ave
But you've
pops up.
confirmed that was in fact, that there was a filing in 1980?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
he
I
sent
got
it.
the file here.
Oh, you do, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We wanted to look at
All
it.
right, then if you just want to, if you want to vote for that, then fine.
Yeah, I think because the order of conditions has expired, I think we are within our rights to issue a certificate of compliance. I make a motion
And just
to
check
that
it off,
effect.
that, yeah, that one.
Oh, okay.
Is there a
Alright.
second on that?
So my letter's no good?
You don't
Sorry.
need a letter, you just need
No,
a form.
we'll
I'll
just issue
second
the
that.
certificate of
Okay.
compliance.
All those in
Okay,
favor?
and
Aye.
Did you second that?
Tom,
Tom?
Yes.
All opposed, so voted. Do you have a certificate
Yes,
of
I do.
compliance sheet we can sign? Well, that's good, that takes
Wanna
two
pass
lines
that
off of the agenda here.
So where is that box that you're talking about checking off? It's like on the.
I'll have to
big
look
page?
at it, but there's a
Well,
place
this,
on the
I just
form
have
for
the
it.
signature sheet page, so that's something.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's on the other,
And it's not on
it's
that
one of the
page.
blocks on the other page.
Okay,
They have provisions for that.
all right. I don't think I said anything to anyone because I didn't think I was going to be able to get it on the agenda because I already passed the agenda in.
Oh,
And then I had to add something to it, so I stuck that on there. I think that was why
uh-huh,
nothing was said.
I see.
Okay, what?
No, I'm just thinking.
Okay, the next item is a 7:15, I have 7:15. We have a 7:15 continued public hearing for Herb Chambers, 20 Prospect Street. I saw in the emails that Mike Andrade was not coming this evening for this. I did watch the planning board meeting last evening. They do seem to have clarified all the issues between the peer reviewer and Graves, except one that may or may not impact us. They're still having issues over the access to the site via Prospect Street. And a lot of it seems to hinge on the road opening permit that Mass DOT would grant for the access to Route 20. So, to me, I think our issues as they stand right now are closed, and you could simply, I mean, if they end up changing the plan that affects our jurisdiction, then they'll need to ask us to reopen the hearing and modify the order of conditions.
Exactly.
So it sounded like that was still an issue, and they're really waiting for Mass DOT to make a decision, so.
I know sometimes, Mike, you might be more familiar, when they do curb cuts on like a state highway, sometimes it can take like upwards of a year. It's just an administrative thing. So they might have permission, but until they actually get the written approval.
Yeah, apparently they haven't gotten their approval yet from Mass DOT. So there's some debate over whether they're going to be able to take, I guess the entry, making a left-hand turn into the site from Route 20 isn't the issue, but whether or not Mass DOT will allow a left-hand turn out of the site is an issue.
Yeah.
Because, the planning board doesn't want the access they don't want access to the site via Prospect Street. And apparently, even though a peer review was done that they paid for, the town DPW has also given a review. And they are concerned about access via Prospect Street because the road was recently redone and it wasn't designed to accommodate that kind of traffic and those heavy car carriers.
Right.
And they felt that if in fact they have to access via Prospect Street, that Prospect Street should be widened at the applicant's expense. So,
That's on this letter
Yeah.
dated June 6th.
yeah, I didn't see that either, so I only heard
I
from...
emailed it to everybody on the
Okay.
10th.
Okay.
And then,
So anyways, I heard them, they were discussing it last night, so a lot of this seems to be contingent upon what Mass DOT ends up allowing them to do with their access permit. So, that's the way it stands right now, so. Anyways, I didn't know if there were any other comments or issues or
No,
concerns or
I mean,
whatever.
he's been here a few times, and I think we've had a chance to thoroughly review the project.
Okay.
So, if no one else has any comment, I would move to close the
I'll
public
second
hearing.
that.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Would you care to do your...
Eligible.
Do
Did
the
you
order
wanna do
conditions
order?
now?
Yeah.
Sure.
Are the Bruins playing tonight?
Yes, they
Yeah,
are.
they are.
Oh, okay. What time?
8 o'clock.
8:17.
do you
Eight
need your
seventeen.
That would know.
Michael?
I thought I
Does
had
that
one,
mean
but
the
I may-
stopwatch
I think I do.
is ticking here?
Thank you, Sheila.
You're welcome. There's two.
Oh,
Okay. I'll keep one, I'll give you the other one.
I didn't realize that was
Then
his
when I
text.
lose that one, I'll ask you again. Actually,
Verizon won't leave me alone, Jim. They keep telling me I need the iPhone 5 for $149 with a 2-year activation and a 30.
You need it.
I need it.
You need it. Gotta have it.
I mean, iPhone, like you hit a hole in the head.
I love the guy that has one and like every other day he wants to throw it out the window, so take his word for it.
I'll stick with Android, thank you very much.
So you prefer that?
I don't like the way Apple does business and basically tells everybody how they shall and shall not use things. They've become a little bit too much like the old Microsoft for my liking.
Oh.
okay. With regard to Herb Chambers, I would move to issue the standard order plus the following special conditions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 13.
Oh, there it is.
He made it.
Hey.
We're playing musical chairs
Did
tonight.
you include the one relative to replication?
I did.
Okay, thank you. I couldn't remember.
That's number 4.
Wife got out of her appointment early, so
Where's the kid?
he's still there. She came up and she's watching him.
I'm trying to figure out how old your son was.
10,
Yep,
doing
you two were right.
his gymnastics.
Probably old enough not to chew on your gavel.
Unless
Oh,
he
he would
hadn't been
take
fed
over
in a
this
while.
meeting if he was here. He was a talker, believe me.
Jeez.
Yeah.
He'd throw the gavel at someone.
Chuck, do you know Dan Carpenter? Chuck, do you know Dan Carpenter?
We have a new member.
Chuck
I
Olson?
think I know Dan Carpenter,
That's right, you
yes.
do. Well, Dan just got appointed on
Very
Friday.
good. Got a full board now
We
again?
have a full board,
Good.
yes. Okay, so we're
Excellent.
just about to do our order of conditions for Herb Chambers
Okay.
to close that hearing. Oh, actually, Michael just made a
He
proposal,
did.
so was there a
did.
second?
I'll second.
Okay, is there any other discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
I'll abstain just because I wasn't here for the
Okay.
initial motion.
All right, so we've got to get a page going around for that. Okay.
And are they still planning on having a meeting on the election day? As
No,
far as, they can't, right?
Right.
By law.
right. You cannot have a public hearing on election day because you cannot cause a conflict between someone who has to participate in a hearing or go to a hearing and who may want to vote.
Right.
So, the planning board already had 2 other hearings advertised for the 25th. So, I just got a note actually from Adam Burney that planning board, we're gonna go with, follow our regular schedule, 26th, and we're gonna go with the planning board's gonna come to us on the 26th.
Excellent.
That's good. When's election day? Is it the 25th?
25th.
Okay.
Tuesday.
I thought it was the 8th.
Tuesday having that,
Debate? Okay, that's what it was. Maybe it was something to do with politics on the 18th.
yeah.
It must be like the 3rd debate.
I abstained, so I don't know if I
Yeah.
can sign it.
I wouldn't.
Okay, we still have some time before the next agenda item, before the next public hearing rather. Hilltop Farm. I don't quite know what to do about this situation. We talked about this, it was lot 29, which I guess is 12 Hilltop Farm Road. I thought it was 29 Hilltop Farm Road. But anyways, remember at the last meeting, there was an issue because that lot was being sold and the closing was on May 31. And we had not issued a certificate of compliance on that and several other lots in that subdivision because we did not have it, we never got an as-built plan to scale. And there is documentation in the file that there was a letter from our former clerk to Tom Irvain, the developer at the time, indicating that, acknowledging the receipt of the as-built plan, but that it was at the wrong scale and asking for one at the same scale. Well, since that time, Mr. Irvain is no longer a developer, Celtech Engineering is no longer around. We cannot find our copy of the smaller version of the scaled plan. John Rockwood was watching our last meeting and told me that there was a way to figure it out so that we could have made that work, but now we can't find it. Sheila's been through everything and cannot find that plan. So I emailed Joe Bellino for some advice on what to do, and his thought was, could we go out and take a look at the site and eyeball it to verify that it was confirmed, although it's more than one lot, it's several. The only other thing would be to have the former homeowner or the new homeowner pay to have an as-built plan done. He also suggested, Bellino did, that we might want to ask Nick Antanavica, our building commissioner, if he would be willing to go out and take a look at the site for us and determine, you know, the location of the house, was it in the proper place, was, you know, were things as they seem to be on the plan. But again, it's more than just lot 29, it's several lots in that subdivision. Now, there were a lot of lots. John Rockwood had emailed me initially because Ecotech had done a number of the filings in that subdivision, but not all. Unfortunately, 29 was not one that they did.
Were these the ones that were up by Bryn Mawr? They had
No.
water issues.
No, that was
That's
Regis
Prospect
Drive.
Street.
This is,
Okay.
this is off
Prospect.
of Prospect Street.
Okay.
It's Hilltop Farm Road and Booth Road. So, anyways,
Well, do we have the original plan? We don't have anything?
we have the original plans, we
yeah,
don't have
but-
the as-built plans.
No, I understand
Right.
that.
The plan was like this proposed hand-done type of thing.
We had regular plans for all of that subdivision, so I don't know what that's
I mean,
about.
this was this was the plan that he brought into me.
Who is he? Is it,
Tom
Tom
Revere.
Ravane, which this is just like with the DEP file numbers and, you know.
But you must have a file with all those plans. You told me that you found a number of the
Oh,
plans.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
so we have the plans.
yeah.
The
But
regular
it seems
plan.
like they're all individual, the ones
Right, he
I
filed
found.
on almost
Oh.
all the lots were filed separately. He filed
Oh, okay,
initially for the infrastructure, for the road and the utilities. And then
okay.
he filed each lot separately.
Oh, all right.
so no certificate of compliance has been issued for any part of this project?
A
There have
couple of
been
the
some.
houses, yeah.
There have been some.
All right. Like, did we approve the road, if you know?
Yes,
Okay.
that's been accepted as a town road now.
But, all right, so, and we have issued a certificate of compliance for that.
C30, I don't see lot 29.
It's kind of like out over here somewhere.
Like I said, I see on the agenda it's 12 Hilltop Farm Road. I don't know where the 12 comes
Okay.
from. Because he had told me it was lot 29, but house numbers and lot numbers aren't always the same.
No, they're not.
I don't know who brought up 12 Hilltop Farm Road. I don't know where that came from, but
Was that over by where the blowout was of the drainage?
I'm not sure.
Well, if the
It looks like a
blowout was right
retaining
there.
wall. It's pretty close.
Right where that water's going right now, that's where the blowout was. So it's not
Yeah.
that far from it, but not really the lot that was involved.
Okay.
But you're saying you cannot find a copy of a plan with the house, showing a
Yeah, I
house?
can't find anything for number 12. Seems like I've got every
Where
other
did you get
one,
number
but-
12 from? Because he told me
House
29.
12.
Available online.
Okay.
Yeah, lot 29, I'm sorry.
I don't know, I just noticed like.
That's really odd. I mean,
And she can't find the as-built plan at the wrong scale either.
yeah, that's unfortunate.
I found all the requests for the certificate of compliance. I don't know where I found them. I put them in a file folder.
Up from the shoreline.
But according to Attorney Broder, it is recorded on the deed. It's on the deed for that property. He represented I'm not sure if he represented the buyers or the sellers. But it was he that brought the matter to the board's attention.
Well, it's hard to evaluate a parcel of property if you can't, or it's bad enough that we don't have an as-built. We don't have the original plan.
Yeah, well, I didn't realize until this very minute that we didn't have a
I
filing for
understand that.
that lot.
I understand that, so,
So I guess we can resurrect the file. I can ask Attorney Broder to provide us what he has.
I think that's fair, and I would, I don't think we can do anything until, I mean, at least if we have the original plan, we could, I think, maybe eyeball it, or have our building inspector eyeball it, if he's willing to. So I would move that we send a letter to Attorney Broder asking him to provide us with another copy of the proposed house lot, or proposed plan for lot 29.
And might you include perhaps a copy of the order of conditions that was recorded on that deed if he has it? I mean, that must have shown up at the filing, or we could probably get that from
It's
the
public
registry of deeds
record.
anyways, right?
It's public record.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I do
I'll
have
second
the
that.
DEP file.
All right, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Okay. All right, I have 7:30, so I'm going to call the public hearing to order for the Masad Family LLC. This is relative to the request to amend the order of conditions that was originally issued under file number 98-0676.
I recuse myself from the
Oh,
hearing.
that's right. Please note that Tom will be recusing himself from this. Thank you, Tom.
Tell me where the best place to stand is.
I guess that's all I don't know.
For the record, I'm Michael Scott. I'm an engineer at Waterman Design Associates in Westboro, Mass. I'm here on behalf of the Massive family. There will not be anyone here from the Massive family. I was informed this afternoon. Go ahead.
Do you have an extra copy of this for you?
I can give you one of this
First of all, I have the green cards. These were the same list of folks that were notified for both requests.
filings?
It's a request to amend. Yes, I have a copy of that.
Okay.
Yeah, a request to amend the order as well as the new notice that we filed back in May. I know I was here several months ago, before most of you, all of you, I think. And at that time, we'd filed the same plans that we filed back in May, but at that point we were asking you to consider amending the existing order of conditions which allowed the Matsons to construct the service facility out on Faith Ave, the GM service facility, to allow them to amend that order to relocate a portion of Faith Avenue, and the discussion that evening was that that was inappropriate in terms of the procedure, that more appropriate way of addressing what has happened out here, which I'll describe in a second, as well as to discuss and have the commission consider the relocation of the existing Faith Ave to be to the east of the building, or sorry, the west of the building, would be to file a separate notice of intent for that roadway portion, and then ask to allow the existing order to be amended to include some of the work that was done that was beyond the scope. And there were a number of things that were done beyond the scope, some of which is clearly within your jurisdiction, some of which was clearly within zoning and planning, and other bodies in town as well, as far as jurisdiction goes. In quick summary on that again is the building was approved roughly in this location, but it was about half the size when it was approved. They expanded to the east. That pushed a lot of the development of the site, or at least a lot of the parking and grading, to the east. This portion of the site was essentially, or built essentially as approved, the exception being that after meeting with you and receiving an order of conditions, the Massons acquired what is essentially this piece of land. There was a house lot at the time. It was a house lot at the time. May show that way. That photo's newer, but if you go far enough back, you can see there was a home here. That home was subsequently demolished. That home was within the buffer zone. A portion of that lot, which had been previously developed, was then redeveloped as a parking lot, so their parking expanded. So the original order, I don't have the number, the 676, that didn't include this piece, so we requested an amendment to allow this to become part of the existing order and to allow the construction of the parking lot out in this area. I went into some detail last time, and I've also discussed this with the planning board and the zoning board. The infiltration system and site drainage system that was designed to collect stormwater flow from the entire site was over-designed because it was originally designed to treat portions of Faith Avenue that were then subsequently taken out of the tributary system to the infiltration area. However, they didn't, the design engineer at that time, which was not Waterman Design, it was HST Group, they didn't shrink the scale of that. So in essence, they overbuilt the infiltration system. So it has more than enough capacity to treat everything on site that collects and flows to it, including this newer portion of the lot. So the Massids are, initially requesting, and as I described before, this is sort of a plan that, and I'm not showing you the plan that we're describing, this is what's out there. The plan that they would then build to correct that overbuilding, if you will, is this plan, which has been approved by the zoning board and has been presented to and discussed with the planning board earlier this year, which again retains that portion of the site where they built out into the buffer where the house came down, leaves all this portion of the site to the west of the building that was approved, and leaves much of what's been constructed on the right or the east side of the building, with the exception of what you see as highlighted as green, which would be areas of pavement that would have to come out, and that serves two purposes. One, it really serves, the major purpose it serves is to meet the aquifer requirement, or the maximum amount of impervious surface on the property, which when you look at the entirety of the property as it sits now, which is in red, this plan brings the impervious area somewhere to around 78%, which is below the allowable 80% in town, and the ZBA has approved this plan. So we believe that this plan is constructible with, or they would, as I mentioned last time, they would deconstruct, they would rip out some of the pavement, they would install grass islands, they would actually have to relocate the walls that are located in the right-of-way around this portion of the site. They would pull them back into the site, and they would have a strip of grass to, one, add or reduce impervious. Two, it would keep them outside the 10-foot setback for parking that's required. No parking within 10 feet of a right-of-way in town. So it serves those two purposes. As I mentioned, the ZBA approved this plan. It's not the plan, though, that the Massachusetts ideally would like to end up with, and that's what the notice is about. But again, after discussion with the commission and also discussion with DEP, the decision and the direction from you folks and DEP was that the right thing to do is request an amendment to the current order to allow this plan change, with the understanding that the infrastructure that was constructed is adequate to serve this if they choose to leave this, or should the road not work out for everybody. And then add that one parcel in, which is noted in the request to the original order.
And I just want to put out there for the record, it's not so much that it was the right thing to do, it was the legal thing to do. DEP policy 85-4 clearly says that when you have a significant change in the scope of the project than what was originally filed, you can't amend it to include something like the building of a road. So I just want to put that out there, because that's the way it was. It wasn't an arbitrary decision, it was based on policy from DEP.
So I would be happy to field any questions relative to this plan and the request that the Masses have made.
Just out of curiosity, if the road plan goes through, is this going to become pervious again?
Well, I'll show you that. It's part of the subdivision
Yeah.
filing that comes next. That's why we
We
tried
have
to
to-
do it sort of all at one time.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a little bit of
There's a little bit of
hand
black
waving
over,
going
but,
on,
yeah,
and trying to keep it all above boards.
right.
Mike, from that site visit we did we inquire about the, what did it look like we were seeing, was it natural gas?
Propane lines. There was
Yeah.
there was an access or a junction box for two propane.
Near the corner of the
lines.
wetland.
Yep, right here. Those are located right here.
Okay.
Okay.
And then they feed the heater systems that are out in the back here, and then out in this part, there's another set in this part of the site.
And that's probably going to be your question that you're going to ask in the next hearing.
Those would have to be relocated, but that's shown on the
Right, because
plan.
that's kind of near where the road
It would be within the road, yeah, yeah, and there's,
Yeah.
and there's a setback requirement to the
Slight
to the
That's why I'm
property.
saying we need,
Yep.
that's something we can.
No, and the proposal would be that they would remain. If, as it's shown right now, they don't intend to
Right.
relocate anything. They are below ground. You are correct. They're there. We did locate them based on, we survey located the riser, and then the contractor gave us the routes and so on, the approximate sizing.
Okay, so, does anybody have any questions? We pretty much exhausted this topic when we met with Waterman before, but our new member, I don't know, Dan, if you had any questions.
If the board's comfortable with it, I'm happy to go on.
Okay, and you understand the difference between the two? Okay. All right.
So the green areas, they're just going to be planted with grass?
Well, there's a landscaping requirement in terms of overall plant material that was approved by the board, by the planning board, which we would then go back to the board, and if this is the plan that's ultimately going to prevail and be built and everyone's going to live with, we would redo the planting plan. The wall, as I mentioned, this plan doesn't show the wall being relocated, that would have to happen. So we've already, I mean, first of all, the Massons are on the hook, they've already got a permit to do all the landscaping. We committed verbally, and they were there at the meeting, that we would redo the plan. We'd have one of our landscape architects essentially transfer what was approved, but fit this plan. The rationale behind where you see the grassed islands are is that there's existing light standards out there, and the idea is not to have to tear the whole site apart right now. The striping plan you see is designed to conform to zoning, but it also affords the fire department adequate access around the building. And it meets the ADA, or Mass Architectural Access Board accessibility requirements. So this plan, we think, works and could be built relatively quickly if they choose to go that way. I mean, obviously the walls, that will be a little effort, but other than that, tearing up pavement and dressing the site up the way the planning board and the other boards in town really intended it to be. It's just not their preference, the Mass's preference.
The grassed areas, is that on a slope or is it flat?
Back in here, well, this part of the site is actually, if you've been out there, it kind of levels off because the walls are there, so
Right.
it pitches back. It's actually pitching back into the site. The catch basins
Okay.
are, you can't see them on that plan, but they're there. And we have the shot, the wall. The catch basins are here and here on the low point, so the site actually comes up a little bit to the wall, so it would
Okay.
be self-contained.
And just how wide is that strip going to be?
Well, right there it's 10 feet, but when we move the walls, we're really going to have to make it a little wider than 10 feet to
Okay.
accommodate the amount of impervious that's required. But that's the outer the outer perimeter gets 10 feet. And then this driveway goes away as part of any design, because that was not permitted by site plan. I mean, it's outside the buffer zone, but it's just another change to the plan. The buffer zone, the jurisdiction is not highlighted, but this is the buffer zone to the wetland in this area. And then there's also buffer on Faith to a wetland that's down at the toe of a pretty steep slope.
Right.
Okay, is there anything else? Any other comments,
No.
concerns? Okay, then, is there a motion?
I'd move to close this portion or the request to amend the existing order of conditions.
Okay,
I'll second that.
any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. All right then, so the hearing on the request to amend is closed. That being said, excuse me?
I was going to make sure that if we voted.
Being after 7:35, I will call the public hearing to order on the notice of intent filed by the Massage Family LLC relative to the construction or relocation of a portion of Faith Avenue at this site. Is there a motion to open?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted.
Okay. I
Yes.
delivered the green cards. Do you need to read the legal ad, or do you do that?
No, we're good.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you.
So again, Mike Scott, Waterman Design. So this should answer some of the questions that were asked just previously, hopefully it does. The Masters, what they would like to do out here, rather than build what you saw on the last plan, is to relocate Faith Avenue to the west of the existing facility. They own what's their Chevrolet dealership here, which fronts on Washington Street. They own the Cadillac dealership, also that's on Washington. And right now, this former service building is vacant. I think they store cars in it, but they're not performing service in it. They have discussed that their longer range plans include converting this to the Cadillac GMC dealership and demolishing this building. And so as part of that, they're going to end up with this, same arrangement of three main buildings, 2 dealerships and 1 service center. And right now, they're using Faith Avenue for all intents and purposes. They're cutting across it daily. Their customers cut across it. They've constructed a bit of a crosswalk here. And what they'd like to do is have everything be one campus. In other words, if the road were relocated to the west of their building, and as part of the deal, part of the subdivision deal, and eventual disposition of land, when this road was taken by the town after it was properly constructed and ready to be used by the public, then the remaining, or the loop of the existing Faith Ave that's around the building, around their property now, would become available for sale or disposal by the town. The idea being that the Massets would either be able to purchase it as excess property or bid at auction and purchase the property. And then in essence, they'd have one big contiguous piece of property from Washington Street bounded by the 395 and the Pike, and then of course Faith Avenue on the west, as opposed to Faith Avenue all the way around. When they came to us, a little over a year ago, they asked us to take a look at how they might do this. We, as I mentioned last time, we came initially to the town sometime last summer, probably about a year ago, with a schematic layout that essentially took Faith Avenue and went straight from Route 20 to the north, more or less perpendicular into Faith Avenue, kind of the same sort of road, but it was farther to the west. And at that time, the Massets were trying to buy property from their neighbors, who are Langway and folks that own Johnson Seaman Building, which is this building right here, the engineering company. Over the course of many months, they could determine that they could not purchase land from Mr. Bordeaux, and therefore they had to look at an alignment that put the driveway on their property. So we went from an alignment that had a narrow crossing of a wetland area in this location approximately to where we ended up with the road in this plan, which shows the road going through. This is the area of the wetland that was originally out at the site prior to the permitting of this building. Since that time, as part of that project, there was replication of several hundred feet of stream bank along the south and the north sides of that wetland area, and around that, and so ancillary to the bank restoration, there was about 4,000 square feet of wetland or something like that. BVW creation. So this plan shows cutting through that existing wetland, and then it would also require the relocation of the existing, or the recent wetland creation, the area that was created along the west side of their property, to the what would be the west side of the future Faith Avenue. So that's what you see in this sort of the lighter green, or the brighter green shade here. That would be our proposed wetland replication, which takes the stream bank that was replicated in this area and it relocates it to the west of what would be Faith Ave. It's a 24-foot wide road. It's flat. It meets town standards for the most part. This plan same plan has been filed with the planning board as part of a definitive subdivision plan. That's the grading plan. But concurrent with, or as a result of the road being relocated, it affords the Massets the opportunity to completely change the layout of this portion of the site. And what you see here looks somewhat like the last plan that we just looked at for the amendment, but you can see greater width of grassed islands. We have the perimeter area where the old Faith would be demolished and come out. This portion of Faith Ave that's running between the 3 buildings or 4 buildings would remain. It would become essentially their, again, if everything went properly for them, it would become their property, it would become their main driveway. And it would allow them to operate and move across their site without constantly entering Faith Ave and being in a public way. And again, it simplifies things for them. It's one big parcel in essence. In terms of the wetland impacts and things that I think are relevant to discussion or to discuss with you folks, first and foremost, the road goes right through the area that was just replicated, and it also entails covering or filling of what was pre-existing, naturally occurring wetland area. The proposed road location, from a planning board standpoint, I believe it, it's been reviewed by, the subdivision plan was reviewed by the town's peer reviewer, Graves Engineering, and they had a few minor, I would call them detail type comments. They agreed with the drainage design. They agreed with virtually all the engineering. They had a couple questions about whether or not we should do a little soil testing out in that corner of the site, and then just how we might maintain access to this portion of the highway department's right-of-way. But I don't think any of those things are problematic to the extent that it can't be solved. And in terms of the horizontal and vertical geometry, site distance is there. There's, it's a meets the standards of ASHTO for a public way. And it's really essentially what you have out there today, with this curve being more or less the equivalent of the curve at this point, but with this curve and this slope being a far gentler and certainly safer, and then it's flatter, you've got better sight lines.
Could I just interrupt you for a second?
Yep.
We don't have the benefit of a copy of Graves's peer review.
Yep.
What were their comments on your stormwater report? Those are relevant to us
Yep.
as well.
Yeah, I mean, they have, I can certainly forward it to you, and Adam.
Oh, I'm sure we can get a copy
Yep.
from Adam, we just don't
Sure,
have
the,
one.
yeah, they had 5 comments on hydrology, hydraulics, and stormwater management, and they had 8 comment, which was really a no comment on the Wetlands Protection Act regs, but
Right, because they just do the regulatory review, they don't go out in the field, and they don't look at replication, and they don't look at delineations.
their comments were that they reviewed the hydrology computations and found them to be in order except as noted below, so they had 4 exceptions to that statement. One was that I used the 0-minute time of concentration in a post-construction analysis instead of the minimum of 6, so that was an error on my part on input, which will actually reduce the peak flow, so that's not a harmful comment. There was a question about just making sure the plans in detail. Number 10 was the infiltration detention basin spillway was modeled as one elevation, and it's noted as a different elevation on sheet 4 of the plan, so we should make sure we rectify which is correct and adjust one or the other. And then lastly, they said that they reviewed the rational method computations and found them to be in order. So that would be the catch basin tributary stuff that flows through them. And I will note, just before I go on, that there are there's 4 catch basins proposed within the right-of-way. They would all be, they're all specified as storm scepter treatment units or equal. So you're getting a vastly improved level of treatment from the public way that it certainly doesn't exist in the existing Faith Ave. And then their last comment, 12, relative to stormwater management, was that soil testing ought to be performed in the infiltration detention basin area, which is out in this corner of the site. It's actually within the public way. And they concur that the previous on-site soil testing indicated the soils were suitable for infiltration in that area, but and they believe that the design is, as they termed it, not unreasonable, or its location is not unreasonable. However, we are concerned about the potential presence of ledge present at the Mass Pike interchange. So they suggest that soil testing be performed in that location to confirm that the soils are suitable.
So is that soil testing something that's going to be done?
Well, it could be. It's in the public way, so it would have to be coordinated with DEP. There's also, DPW. There's also overhead power lines, and I don't see I don't see it being a real problem, other than we have to dig on public way or on the public property. The detention basin infiltration is really so small that it's more of an energy dissipator than it is to make up any kind of peak rate mitigation or to further enhance recharge beyond what's required, because the calculations show there's already more than enough recharge. We typically model small basins like that, and you don't really get any kind of result out of it. It doesn't do much good, but if we need to, we can test. If not, we can take it out of the model and see if it matters, whatever's easiest. Again, knowing that the soils throughout the site were great, we didn't think it was worth doing, and because it's in the public way, it will actually be a bit of a headache. But we'll, if things proceed, and that's one of the few sticking points, we'll absolutely do it and determine that it's
What is this bold line along the side of the road?
right here.
Yeah.
That's a retaining wall.
Oh, okay, so there's
So-
a wall there. Because I
Right.
was wondering where the water was gonna go once you filled it
Right.
up.
What goes on now is there's it's on the existing conditions plan shows this is the end of the wetland system today,
Right.
and there's a head wall right here today,
Yep.
and that flows around through the site like that. That's what you see as a
Yep.
proposed easement to cover that drain line, because of course now the town's, well, right now upstream off-site property is already drained through their property, but right now you'd be sending some of the public roadway drainage into that system and through.
So what about this wetland? That's
Right,
gonna
there's-
drain through
Yep,
here?
we actually, and it's in the letter and in the report, and I mentioned it last time, we show there's a pipe end here and a pipe end here. Right now, you just have the single pipe that comes in there.
Okay.
The original study, when it looked at everything out here, this skipping ahead a few sheets, but
Yeah.
it kind of shows you what sort of the overall game plan would be, if you will. So, pardon the kind of nasty color, but that's the building, the existing building. The gray area is the parking lot you saw in that last plan.
Right,
The black is the future, what we're calling the future Faith Ave.
yeah.
The assessment that was done when this was installed and that pipe was run around the building, looked at this portion of the watershed that comes down and through the wetland to that point, but the reality is that up to roughly the midpoint of Langway, Ford, and certainly all of this, and a portion of their property, including the little parts of the little, I think it's radiator, transmission, maybe the transmission shop.
Interstate,
Yeah, they all come into that wetland system as well. Their parking lot, you can almost see it here. This is a kind of a paved slope, and everything just runs right down about a 2-to-1 slope, and then it flows along a stone wall that you can actually make out, and then it flows through this wetland system, and then it ends up over here.
Yeah.
So when I ran the analysis, because of course now we're moving everything a little farther upstream, and we're worried about flooding neighbors and making sure that
Right.
instead of
That's what I'm
having
thinking, where's the water gonna go?
Right. Right, well, instead of having a
Culvert thing, yeah.
25 maybe or a 50-year culvert design, you're going to look at, for a road, you want to look at a higher flow. So we reassessed it, and I added this portion, and that more or less doubles the watershed, which, and since it's all pavement, it more than kicks up the amount of runoff that you would see. It wasn't simply doubling the area because this is wooded.
Right.
We added a second culvert, so
Okay,
the
so
18
it's
that's
two
there, we
culverts.
have a second culvert that goes, and that's what the area where that water dumps out, that the comment about soil testing comes in. So our second line is shown going like this out to that point.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, it's hard to
Okay.
follow, it's up there.
So you
And-
put it out through
Right.
where the road used to be?
Correct.
Kind of.
Yep, and then that road gets ripped up and we put a ditch along that, more or less where the guardrail is today.
Yeah.
And again, the pipe starts here today. We're saying, well, let's just extend it up to this point and let what's there. And then we ran that hydrology and a culvert headwater analysis that was part of the stormwater report
Yep.
to show that it would stay within the area that we're showing as a wetland. In other words, it wouldn't want to overtop and go this way. And if it did overtop and go to the north, because for whatever reason something became clogged, the relief point is actually out onto Faith Avenue. There's a low point in the catch basin. It's not into this guy's
Okay, but
building.
where does this culvert come through?
Right, it comes right along.
Oh, I
like
see.
that. Yeah, there's a manhole there, and we don't put any of the site drainage into it, so it's strictly the road. It's strictly this
Oh, it's just the
off-site.
road
And,
runoff.
well, there's road runoff here, and it's this off-site, so that makes its way around, and then would spill down the slope. And what's there today, the other half goes this way.
Okay.
So you sort of have a safety valve if this pipe ever became clogged, but you have two, and our thought is, in worst case scenario, they could both be operating.
Can we talk about the replication area a little bit?
Sure. The one that's there today, or the?
The current one that was
Yep.
done to mitigate for the prior projects. When you were here last time trying to convince us of the other plan, you had indicated that no one, like Brian Waterman, I believe is your wetland specialist.
He was out there this morning.
I was just going to ask you,
Yep, it was in-
at that time he had not done any evaluation. Has he since done an
Yep, yeah,
evaluation?
back then it was kind of the dormant stage, so, he could see what was there, but you can't tell if it's gonna come back. Well, he was out there today, and, he, other than a handful of invasives, which were kind of on the upper bank, he said the thing looks pretty good. There's certainly thriving vegetation. There was a little die-off on a couple of the trees that were planted, but one or two of them is even rejuvenating, so, and those were little maples. But
So
he's-
it sounds like your replication area was pretty successful then.
yeah, I think he, in terms of, for the, well, again, it was a replicating bank, and there's no way, he didn't see any evidence of any burrowing or nesting in the banks yet. I mean, it's only been in there for about a year, but the vegetation that was planted is certainly working. And, that's, I think, a reasonable, presumption is that essentially what you've done is you've grown all your wetland replication plants right here, and essentially that same footprint that's over here would be relocated here, soils and vegetation. So, were this to go forward, with the right timing, they could prep this in the fall, they could relocate this in the spring, and you could almost end up with an instant wetland instead of having to wait for it, because you've got the soils, you've got the thriving vegetation. And of course, our plan calls for that, because that's standard practice when you replicate, is to, if you're gonna bury
You can
something,
use-
you're gonna reuse it. We'd obviously overseed, and we actually have tons of supplemental plantings way beyond what was called out and what's growing there. But right now, yes, it's been very successful, and this has been a great year for it. So it's
Does this plan show where the propane line axis would be relocated?
this one will. Yeah, there's a setback depending on the size of the underground tank to be 10 feet from a property line, so it's now not colored, so it's a little difficult to see.
Okay.
But
How far from the proposed roadway?
It's it's dimension right there. It's over 12. It's 12.3 feet, and again, those are buried.
Right.
So there's
Okay.
a curb, and then it's 12 point. We're showing it 12.3 feet to the tank from the property line. So that puts
But
the.
there's still access at the top.
Yep, they would be. And if they had to be bollards or something to protect vehicles from hitting them, that would certainly be, could be added.
Right.
But the NFPA has a standard national fuel. It's NFPA 58 that's for LPG and others, and there's a different standard for above ground than below, but this meets the standard for below ground. So the present location is right here. I'm showing those lines. Those solid lines are tying in to the feed lines into the building. So that's one detail that needs to go. The other thing is, of course, this plan results in the retaining wall, which sort of maximizes the amount of, well, there's the existing, there they are right there, existing. So they're in the wetland replication area that we're showing on our plan. You've got the retaining wall that maximizes this area. We'd be doing essentially the same sort of bank creation that was done over here, which if they use the same contractor, they ought to get the same good results. I mean, they did a nice job. It's almost exactly per the plan because we surveyed it before we had the final detail, which is under this sheet, the one that HSP did with Ecotech, and it looks really good in terms of its layout. Brian confirmed it looks really good in terms of its vegetative take. But this side of the site, we don't have any walls or any guardrail because, with a retail facility, obviously visibility is important. So we've got a 4-to-1 slope, which is another public safety issue that's flat enough that guardrail isn't warranted, and that's something that we would have looked at on this side, but for two reasons. One, even if there weren't a wetland, there's a property line limitation right through here. And then two, and more obvious, there's a wetland, so you've got to stop as close or as close to the road as you can, and we need some shoulder for utilities and guardrails, so we've sort of minimized that shoulder.
So, a different thing. What about like snow? Like, do you have areas set aside for where you put?
Well, there would be this side will have a guardrail and curb and guardrail right on it like any other road would. So they're going to have to plow this side, and it's going to have to be, it's going to be plowed up against the rail, and then eventually it's going to get pushed past. This side could be plowed right onto this side of the road would be plowed right onto the lawn area.
What about on the parking lot, though?
Oh, the parking lot, we didn't specify snow storage areas. I mean, they've got it was a tough winter. I didn't ask them what their practices were, but I know that they were shoveling it away because they were, for one, they got in trouble because they were pushing it in the road. But two, I mean,
Now they
again,
just put it over there. Right?
well, I mean, they could certainly put it here in the future because, but again, I mean, one of the things they like about, having this is now they're visible from the highway. I mean, again, the plan has to be beneficial to them as well as to the town to make any sense. So I don't know if the town or you folks in the past have mandated that at a certain point snow be removed from sites. Obviously, it can't be disposed of.
I've just seen it on other plans. Well, they'll say, well, here's
Yeah,
where
snow
the
storage
snow's gonna
area.
go,
We didn't identify snow storage areas. There's ample green area, to store some, but this is a lot of pavement, and they're going to have to haul it away if we continue to have winters like this, like most retail people are doing. I mean, some have looked at those.
Haul it.
I mean, some of
Remove
those.
from the site,
Yeah, I mean, there are those in place. I don't know if you've seen the snow eating machines.
Yep.
And they're outrageously expensive from what I understand, but that can be done in a worst case scenario.
I guess at that point you have to weigh the cost of that versus the cost of trucking it from site.
Yeah.
You have a lot.
Yeah.
I know you've seen a copy of the DEP
Yep.
email.
Yep.
So I guess I'm wondering what your plan of action is relative to his requirement about the alternatives analysis that should have been part of the notice of intent package. That's
Yeah, I
one of
mean-
my comments too. And also the detailed wildlife habitat assessment that they're looking for.
Yeah, I think I'll start with the second one. One, there was a habitat assessment done the first time, which, I mean, in many ways should bear out. With this one, this type of design, it's just relocation of the same bank. But we can certainly, either have Brian or we can talk to Ecotech about taking a look at what they think of this plan and what benefits they see of what's out there today. As I mentioned, Brian didn't see any evidence that the bank's really serving any kind of habitat at this point, but it's only been a couple months, really, when the vegetation's been thriving. And two, I mean, this is right adjacent to a fairly noisy, highly active parking area, so you're going to have less success in some ways with it. Certainly not the vegetation, is which I said is doing great, but It
Well,
may
he
not,
does say that it will be required, so.
so we'll have to, yeah,
address it.
we'll have to talk to Mr. Bellino and we'll get him what he needs. With respect to the alternatives analysis, we can write it up. I talked about this here and I talked about it with the planning board as well, and I mentioned it right out of the gate that, you know, our original plan was to try to avoid any of this and come through here, which is really the, you know, sort of the best case if you have to affect a wetland area is to be as high and through the narrowest point as possible. That's been ruled out. So that leaves us, which I suppose maybe your first idea would be to stay away from any wetland alteration and come near the building. And we did look at that.
Or you could put a bridge in.
Yeah,
Well, that's the
exactly.
third option. Yeah, that's another option that was discussed here with the board. One could be to come around and avoid, but that, and from a zoning perspective and a geometry perspective, it might work, but they're not going to consider it because it's of no use to them.
But you need to document all of that.
Sure, no, I will, and I'm just
And
going to...
and I guess, you know, Mr. Bellino's comment to me when I first asked him for counsel on the other part was, do they really need to have that road through there?
Right. And then...
I think that's something you're going to need to address too.
So then, okay, and then the last question, of course, was could you put a bridge on it? And
Right.
when we had looked at this, that was clearly an option. When we get down here, and we'll explain all this. Geometrically, it might be made to work. You know, throwing the financial or economic aside, I don't really see any value to putting a bridge there because if you span the wetland, which is about 60 feet wide, you're going to be spanning this unless you make it extremely tall, and you'd have to meet the openness anyway. But let's say we make it a really high enough bridge to meet openness. You're really connecting, you're still going to shade, you're going to change the character of the wetland, and it's hard to see on this plan, but more obvious on this plan. I think. The bridge would essentially expand, be out to this width, this bold line, which leaves this tiny little finger out here of the existing wetland that would be open to air and daylight from above. So what you're doing is you're covering 2,000 square feet of wetland instead of filling it. So I don't see the inherent benefit of doing that versus relocating it. I'm not saying there isn't one. I'm just saying I don't see one.
And that may be the case, but I think that the point is that you need to document that in
Sure.
writing.
Sure, we can do that.
Yeah.
And then the other question is why do they need it? And yeah, do they need it? They believe they need it. Is there a public safety or wetlands provision that's driving it? This is going to be inherently safer than the current road. From a wetlands perspective, no, I can't think of any logical. But other than as I mentioned, we're going to be relocating and improving the existing replication area, getting it away from an area of higher use.
But
So-
you've already told us that replication area is a success.
Well, at least in terms of vegetation, I did, yes. I can't say as terms of what it was actually put in for, which was the bank.
Right.
So, that we'll have to have someone look at that.
So what's your pleasure?
I'd love for you to vote and approve it right now.
Well, I have one more comment.
No, but you asked me the
I
question.
have a
What's
question.
my pleasure? I think. Well, first of all, I agree. We need to, we need to address DEP. We got this the other day. I didn't reach out to Joe because I figured I'd come here first, and we'll go back with the laundry list rather than try to piecemeal it.
Well, the other thing that I'd like the board to consider is that I did speak to Adam Burney last week, or maybe it was the beginning of this week, I can't remember, relative to the peer review, and he had told me that the peer review only addressed the regulatory portion of the wetlands regulations. Graves does not go out in the field, they don't review the delineation, they don't look at the wetland replication protocol. I would like to suggest that we have the same wetlands consultant that helped us with this original project, Margaret Washburn, take a look at this protocol. I think that it really is a supplement to the peer review and would give a complete picture of what we're dealing with. I don't think that, I appreciate Graves's, stormwater and the planning board and the ZBA issues, but I really think that on this particular situation, given the scope of this project and the fact that we're going to eliminate a replication area that was given to mitigate for wetland filling from a prior project, and we're going to relocate the replication area and include replication for additional filling, I really think that we ought to have a professional person evaluate the replication protocol. That's my
That seems
opinion.
fair.
I mean, we did it on the original filing, so
Right,
it makes sense on a new filing, do the same thing.
right.
Yeah, jump in.
I guess it comes down to a matter of the expense of it. the peer review is paid for by the applicant. I feel, my opinion is that this is a supplement to the peer review. I don't know what your feelings are. I mean, we have wetlands filing fee money, but, I mean, it's really, it wasn't addressed by Graves. I think it's significant, I think it's important, I think it needs to be addressed. So I guess I'm, asking you what you think.
Can I ask a general question? And that
Sure.
we're now all under development and inspectional. Why isn't wetlands, when we're dealing with this, so that it's all done in one shot, why isn't it included in? I understand Graves from the planning board that they don't have a wetlands consultant,
They
yada
don't.
yada, they sub it all out.
Right.
I understand that, but on the applicant's behalf, they're coming here, it's a delay, and we're supposed to be coordinating all this. That's the whole reason for the new department.
Right.
I don't understand
disagree
why
with-
we don't
Right, I don't
have that.
disagree with that. Oftentimes, Mr. Bernie is the first one, and I'm not trying to, hold him out there. But he's the first one to see these filings that come in, and he sets in motion the peer review, typically on behalf of the planning board. And I think sometimes maybe our piece is kind of forgotten a little bit. And because Graves gives a price based on the request to review, typically for ZBA and planning, and oh, by the way, there's a notice of intent from the Conservation Commission. Well, because Graves doesn't employ a wetlands person, the only part that they address as part of their quote to the applicant is the regulatory piece, just the regulations, whether the notice of intent is complete in the way that it's filed. And it's well known that they don't look at the field work.
No,
And
no.
sometimes we don't need that level of assistance, but in this case, I wish that someone had said something about it. And again, I can't order a peer review without a vote of the board. And this is the first time we've had this before us
True.
to do that.
First notice of intent.
Right.
No, it's understandable, this is typical.
Right, and I would just point out to you all that we're also trying to coordinate a meeting with the planning board. Unfortunately, the planning board, originally, when Mr. Bernie and I discussed this, the plan was, the planning board had Diamond on their agenda last evening, Masad Family LLC. They had originally wanted to continue their meeting from last night to tonight and join us here so that we could discuss this jointly, because this is a huge project, and, the planning board is interested in our point of view and our perspective and our regulations. Unfortunately, some of the planning board members, there were only 3 of them there last evening, so they knew they couldn't all make it to our meeting tomorrow night, and then we had planned for the 25th of June, and then it was brought to our attention by the town clerk yesterday that June 25th is the election for the U.S. Senate, and you cannot have a public hearing on an election day. So the planning board already had advertised 2 public hearings for that day, and we had all, we were hoping to be able to continue our meeting to meet with them, and now nobody can have hearings on Tuesday. So I proposed to the planner last night that could the planning board come to the Conservation Commission on the 26th, which would be our regular meeting night. And I got a note that yes, they can. So that's where we're at with that. So I think it's 2 weeks. I would propose to contact Margaret, if this is going to happen, I'd like to contact Margaret Washburn right away and ask her if she can do her assessment and be here at the meeting on the 26th to present her findings so that both boards can hear from a professional exactly what her assessments are.
Well, before we go there, to follow up, when I was on the planning board, we did allow the chair discretion. And I'm new to the board, but I know the board, I know the chairman. I personally would be comfortable with giving her the authority when a filing comes in to instruct the planner to have a peer review if it's something substantial. I know she's not one to spend money recklessly, but so I don't think that it should be an issue, but I don't know how other board members feel. But to me, to shorten the time span, and has got 30, 40 years doing this, she knows when we need a peer review and we don't. And it just seems that it would shorten the process. It would help Adam. I know he's taking classes to try and become more familiar with it, but I think communication is key, and we need this done yesterday, not if the board is comfortable, I'd be happy to make a motion.
Well, I mean, that's all well and good, except that doesn't help us in this particular case.
No, but I'm saying going forward.
What I'd like to discuss, and I'm fully on board in terms of having Ms. Washburn review the replication. But if I hear that Ms. Weston correctly, I think the question is who's going to pay for it.
Right.
And it sounds like you would prefer to have the applicant pay for it.
Well-
And I don't necessarily disagree with that, but obviously, you know, if the applicant says no, then clearly we're going to have to use our own funds to
Right.
take care of it.
But I didn't want to put that out there because the applicant's going to say no, knowing
Well,
that we have our own
Well,
funds.
We don't know.
I'm not going to speak for the applicant, but having done this enough and been on the other side of the table, we mandate it in my town, and I've seen it mandated any number of times, unless it's explicitly stated that you don't do that, and that you've set up, or that you've set up, I guess, to protect yourself if you haven't set up precedent by paying in other instances. I mean, it's part of the peer review process.
It is.
It's not uncommon at all. If Graves handled it, or had probably suggested it.
Because they would have subbed it out to, they usually use Ecotech,
They
but
could,
they
and I
couldn't
think in
use
this instance,
Ecotech
they wouldn't
here.
have done that,
I
correct?
Right.
Correct.
So, and that's why we didn't use Ecotech when we had it, you know, when we had it reviewed.
Sure, no, and it makes sense, and if I'm speaking to the masses, I would say you want the person with the continuity, because she knows what she's seen, and
Right, exactly, that was my, that was-
and we've worked with Margaret, and we find her fair, which maybe is not what you want to hear, but
No,
that's true.
no, I
You
think
know,
she's very fair.
She's fair, and she's reasonable, and
She's-
that's important.
She's very capable. That's
Yeah,
why we
more than
like her.
capable. Yep,
You know,
I totally agree with you. So,
Yeah, she's gonna call it the way she sees it,
and I don't, you know,
Which
I
is
think
what
frankly
you
her
want.
rates are very
Absolutely.
competitive with everyone else.
right?
yeah, no, and from that standpoint, I would probably advise them that she's a bargain in that sense,
Right.
Yeah,
because it's
I
not
would
going to take
agree.
5 hearings to get her to see reason.
No,
Exactly.
and
Vice
I'm sure
versa.
that if, you know, if you can get the authorization tomorrow
Mhm.
for those funds, I mean, I can certainly email her tonight and ask her, you know, and we've got to get this to her. I'm sure she'd stop by and get a copy of the plans and everything so that she can give us a price, and, you know, that gives her 2 weeks
Mhm.
to get it done. And I think, knowing her, I think she could pull it together.
Well, okay, that raises the next issue, which is, can you address the issues raised by DEP before or by the time of the June 26th meeting?
Yeah, we can certainly respond to them in that week and a half. I will tell you, I'm going to be out of state that week, so if we have someone from our, you know, certainly we have Brian Waterman presumably to deal with the wetlands protection aspects of it. So whether
And it would
there's,
probably make sense for him to be
no, he
here.
would be if Ms.
Yeah.
Washburn's involved, and that stuff is going to be discussed. Whether or not, and then any response we put together to the DEP, whether or not it makes sense to have the planning board present to. Well, I suppose you want them to hear that, so that's worthwhile, but I won't be
Right.
here. We'll have to find someone to cover from our
Okay.
end, and I would obviously ask the Massets to be present.
Okay.
You know,
That's
so that-
fine, and I think, you know, we're gonna probably, I don't know, you know, we had talked to the planning board before about 7 o'clock for a time for this.
Mhm.
So I'd like to stick with that if we can.
Okay.
Okay.
So you're looking for any motions, or?
Yeah, if,
After all that?
First of all, you know, does anyone have any other questions you'd like to ask this evening? I want to get everything out there.
I have 2 questions. Has this been before DCG, the Development Coordinating Group in town?
The site plan aspect of it?
The whole project?
No, it has not. It's been in front of the zoning board, it's been in front of the planning board, and it's been here, and we have discussed the stormwater and utilities aspect with DPW, at least with the water department and sewer department.
But I think that,
We have not been in front of the DCG.
no, but I think Mr. Antanavica has looked at this, has he not?
He certainly has, yeah.
Yes.
Do we have any guidance from the town engineer as to the roadway? Whether he is pro, con, thinks it's a great idea, doesn't think it's a great idea, has evaluated it at all?
I'm not aware of any DPW comments, but we could certainly ask that question.
I mean, anecdotally, when we met with him a couple of years, well, about a year ago, when the road was straight, he was all for it. I don't know that, he likes the idea of relocating the road. Certainly the town, from a DPW standpoint, gets a much shorter, more modern
Go around the loop.
piece of road to maintain. And the idea of a bridge is something that, you know, obviously they would weigh into. Does the town want to own and maintain a bridge? I guess is another question relative to a bridge.
Well, that may be something you might want to discuss with him relative to your alternatives analysis.
Sure. Well, it'll be in there. It's an
Yeah.
alternative, whether it's
Okay.
feasible or not.
We can certainly contact the DPW for their impressions. Or,
Absolutely.
We didn't receive feedback through the planning board from any town departments per se. We reached out to the DPW, and we did get the grades letter, that's it.
Okay.
Typically, you go before the DCG.
Even for a subdivision? Do you? Yeah. Wasn't
I don't
asked,
know.
didn't even think about it, to be honest with
While
you.
you're relocating the propane tanks, I would think the fire department, the fire chief would have
Well,
something
those
to say about
permits are gonna
that.
have to be
You know,
managed too.
but he might want to get in ahead of time rather than after the fact. He may say, no, I don't want it there, I want it here, you know. Those are the type of things that the DCG was established to address, shall we say, so.
Yeah, I'm really kind of surprised that you haven't been steered there by Mr. Bernie and
I
Mr.
can ask him.
Pelletier and
I'm
Mr.
happy to
Antino.
attend.
An awful lot of the staff have been involved in this plan
Yeah.
because of the issues
Mhm.
that are there.
Yeah, we've met with the engineer, we've met with Mr. Bernie, Mr. Antanavica, we've met with your town manager.
Right.
We haven't met police and fire. We have discussed DPW.
So we can certainly ask Mr. Bernie about the DCG issue.
Have they met recently, June?
Yeah. The first and third Thursday.
All right, then I would suggest a continuance to the 26th, and I would ask if we can include in the motion perhaps that Mr. Scott is going to try to let us know tomorrow whether the Massads are agreeable to the expenditure, and we will try to have a copy. I don't know, is this filing available electronically, that we could email it to Margaret Washburn?
I can
Can we
scan
email
it.
it?
I can scan it
And we have to
email
like get her the plans, but if we could email the notice of intent and the replication plan, we can get her.
I can scan all the documents tomorrow and you can
All right.
email them. The plans are already scanned, it's just, and I
All
can
right.
scan anything that's not.
And then, maybe she could stop by, I know she's in Spencer every day, so she could stop by and get a copy of the plan here. But I can email her tonight and give her a heads up and tell her I need a price ASAP to give to you.
I will notify the masses when I leave here that there's gonna be a request for,
Okay.
now how, do they give you the check or does it go to the clerk or how does that, is that
Sheila?
administered through you folks?
I know I think it comes into Adam and he deposits it to the
Okay, so they,
treasurer.
okay, so I'll let them know that
I
there will be,
deposit it. He gives it to me after service. Send it to me.
okay, so I'll let them know that there'll be a request coming, we're
All
waiting
right.
for a price.
All right, and we'll make every effort to get it to her, like within the
So
next
get
day
a
or
work
so.
plan out to Margaret, is that what we would do?
Yeah, we're gonna need to get a plan. I'll email her tonight.
If they approve it first.
Well, she's gonna need to give us a price.
It's gonna be paid one way or
Right.
the other.
Right.
Okay.
One way or the other, it's gonna be done, whether they pay for
Exactly.
it or it doesn't. Right.
So I would, in that case, I would move to continue the public hearing to June 26th at 7 p.m. and also request that Mr. Scott, as he said he would, contact the Massett family to determine if they will pay for the peer review by Ms. Washburn. And also, I guess the motion should include that I propose that we use Ms. Washburn to do the wetland review for us,
Okay,
the peer review.
regardless of how it's paid.
regardless of cost,
All
or
right.
who pays
Or
for
who
it.
pays, okay.
Regardless of who pays for it, not regardless
Right.
of cost.
No, I'm sure it'll be quite reasonable. Anyways, is there okay, there's a second from Mr. Olson. Okay, is there any other discussion on this? Okay, and there's no public here. There is a press here, but there's no public people here, so I don't think the press has any questions. Okay. All those in favor of continuing this to June 26th at 7 o'clock?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank
All right,
you.
thank you.
Oh my God, your Bruins game has started.
Don't.
Obviously not a fan.
That's not true.
I don't know. Last week they bolted.
Judging from your Facebook postings, that's a lie.
No, I'm not talking about myself. I'm
Oh,
talking about someone else running the meeting.
oh, I see. Okay. In that case, move to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. All right.
Voluminous Facebook postings,
Yes, indeed.
That's how I communicate with
Wash out
fellow fans.
Oh boy.
play-by-play almost.
Are you
No.
watching it on your
Score by
phone? That's
score.
what I want to know. Are you watching it on your phone?
No, I'm not.
That's very entertaining.
Okay.
It just started, so there's plenty of time to catch up.
Okay. Next thing I'll know, they'll have it on the screen here.
That we should.
Can we do that?
It's actually, they have TV on that one
Come on, that would
sometimes.
be a little distracting, don't you think?
Yeah, right, then we'd be like,
Good night, Mike.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Okay.
I just wanted to ask now, 22 Adela, did anyone get over there to see
I was getting to
his-
that. Didn't get to it on the agenda yet.
see
you
the
go to
banking?
22 Adela?
We did.
And?
Well, it's rather overgrown. I mean, the banking seemed pretty established. The problem is that the owner, we also noticed grass clippings have been deposited on the bank near the
And leaf piles.
pond and leaf piles.
Leaves have been raked into piles onto the bank.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it seems like one issue's been resolved, but another issue has cropped up.
No pun intended.
No, well, you know, trying to keep it entertaining for the
For the public?
members of the commission and the general audience, all
Okay.
three of them.
So,
People not watching the hockey.
Can I
I
ask
don't
you a
know.
question?
Well, hopefully they've switched over to the hockey game. So what do you want to do on this? We have a pending request for a certificate of compliance on this
It's going to stay
property.
pending. I would just send a letter to the property owner and just suggest that
It's not Chris Carizzi. He's not the owner now, is he?
whoever
I
owns
thought he
22
was.
Adela
I don't
Street,
Okay.
I'm not sure.
I thought he sold that.
Well, he was the one that did the planting on
Yeah.
the banking, so I
Right.
would assume it would still go to
All
him.
right.
Not to be presumptuous, but did Mr. Fallon leave for the evening? Just
Oh.
in case somebody has to go get him?
Yes, I think he did leave
Oh,
for
I
the
think
Probably.
evening.
He
Probably
may
watching
have,
the game
but
in
I'd
the car
like to
right
get
now.
He told me he was
Now,
He
he's
told me he
recused
was
and then
going to
departed.
be leaving.
Recuse and excuse myself.
Well, I just
He's
want to
the
make sure
newly
that
departed.
if he is
Yeah.
Yes.
asleep somewhere in the
He's a
building,
fool.
Now
and
he was
after his
leaving.
long day, that you give him the chance to.
Nope. He's
We're
home
going
watching
out.
your
Slick.
ruins.
Slick
Okay.
move there.
So, was there a motion?
Actually, I'd send a move to send a letter to the property owner at 22 Adela Street.
Mhm.
Tell him that while we'd like to issue a certificate of compliance, we can't because we noticed
Grass clippings. and-
grass clippings and
Yard
leaf
waste.
piles, yard waste
In the buffer zone.
in the buffer zone, and that it needs to be removed before we can issue the certificate of compliance.
Is there a second on that?
I'll second that.
Okay, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
So voted. You're going to abstain?
I
Okay.
will abstain.
All right, relative to Kettle Brook, the allegations that National Grid with the tree cutting
We
issues.
didn't have
Did
an
you folks go out
address.
there too?
We didn't have an
Really,
address to
I
go.
didn't know where to go,
Oh,
to be honest with you. So no, we didn't go there. We thought about it, but we didn't know where to go.
okay.
So
Okay, we'll have to try to figure that
we'll
out.
need an
I
address, a
thought we
better
had a
address.
street address, but I'll have to find out. Okay. Street address.
Where else did we go? We went one other place, I thought.
The enforcement order, we
We
issued on
went to
Tuesday.
Mr. Gervais.
You went to Mr. Gervais on Rochelle Street, right?
See, we already issued negative determination on
Oh,
that.
okay.
Before you came in.
Okay.
Right. 273 Washington Street, we issued an enforcement order, correct?
Yep.
We did.
I mailed that out a little bit late because I was a little late getting to do it, and then I needed a little assistance, so I did get that out.
So that went via certified mail?
Yep.
Have you gotten your
In
card?
regular mail, not yet. I
Not yet.
just mailed that out, I think, was it last Thursday or Monday? I gave him 30 days.
All right, so
So-
we'll keep that on the agenda. Okay, the bylaws, back here under discussion. Sheila's working on typing up the bylaws with the changes, so hopefully we'll have that available soon so we can go over it again.
Say that again?
Pardon me? We're not gonna read,
This will be the final
No
review.
reading. I'm not gonna read.
we're not gonna read it again.
Okay, thank God.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
Took a long time.
No kidding.
Okay, the Pappas recreation thing, I don't know what's going on with
It
this.
was May 7th.
Well,
I
apparently
found
not
it, because
much.
We sent the,
What about Graves?
It took forever to get it to Graves, I don't understand why.
Can we send a letter to Graves and ask him what's going on?
I think they
Status?
needed to get something, and then
Well, they finally
Joanna
came,
Pageland
she finally
found
came up with the
something
bid
and-
docs, right. Remember I told you?
Right,
that's
last-
right.
Yeah.
So, could we send a, is there a motion to send a letter asking for status?
Exactly. So moved.
Second.
Is there a all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Opposed, so voted. All right, so we'll try that.
Who seconded that?
Dan did,
Okay.
Dan,
The other
Dan
Dan.
C.
Oh,
The new Dan.
Two
Okay.
Dans, that's right.
I
Yeah.
know, I'm getting all confused here,
He's
as
gonna
you
be
can
Daniel
see.
from now on.
Not the veteran Dan. The new Dan.
Rochdale Street, Bridge Street, that's just something we're carrying
Yeah.
forward. 22 Adela, we've already talked about that. And then we have the minutes.
Minutes. Dun dun dun.
Hmm.
March 27th. Wow.
Yeah, we really need
What
to
the heck?
approve some of these.
Well, March 27th had issues before, and I still have
Okay.
issues.
Oh, you do?
Oh boy.
Okay, so,
Oh, yeah, March
Do we
27th.
want to skip them then?
Oh, I remember those.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
What a
don't
day
think
it
that,
was.
I don't know, I gave you my corrections, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
have
did do
corrections.
them. I did do the corrections, because you were
Well-
putting HS and T in capital letters and
But
it
HS and
isn't.
T is still in small letters.
Because it's not in capital. It's not capitalized. They make it like that. That's how they,
But it's a name.
But it's a
Well,
name.
that's how
Proper
they
noun.
do it on
It
their
doesn't matter.
plan.
It's a proper noun. It should be. It should
Really?
be, yeah.
So they
Okay.
shouldn't have had them lowercase.
They can copyright
But I'm
it
saying
any way
when
they
you-
want, but it's a proper noun. It should
Okay.
be,
All right.
it should be uppercase.
well, I just didn't know that,
Okay.
I
okay.
think you-
It's an exception in this case.
I did make whatever corrections you had given me in.
All right. I don't know. I just,
Shorten it.
Well, should we consider March 27th or wait until the next meeting? Move on to May 8th.
I'd like to wait on March 27th, if you don't mind. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I can correct the thing and send it to you, I guess.
Okay.
So then we have May 7th,
May 8th.
May 8th, and May 22nd.
On the first page, about halfway down, where underneath where it says Mr. Andrew will call DEP,
Yeah.
you put in no SWIP and then you started, and Mr. Andrew will be submitting the SWIP. Why not just cross out no SWIP? Okay?
Okay.
Because for one, it's not a sentence, and I think you address it when you, with the
Say he'd
following
be submitting
sentence.
it, correct.
Okay.
Go back up about 4 lines, and Weston stated the filling of the channel, her opinion, would make it a jurisdictional channel.
In
Uh,
her opinion.
In her opinion.
Okay.
Let's not be snippy now.
Let's be specific. Under the
Yeah, 'cause
Auburn
he
Wetlands
has
bylaw.
duties.
It was under the Auburn Wetlands bylaw that it was
Okay.
jurisdictional. I
Okay.
had written that down myself, actually.
And then where it says, Ann Weston asked to send a copy of the office, and it says no public comment. No public comment, just put in there was no public comment.
And I had a question on the second page. Did I actually say that Diamond was working with us? I don't recall saying that. I said that they were working on preparing their new notice of intent and their request to amend. I don't recall saying.
I thought you made it sound like that, you know, that we're all trying to work together to get this thing resolved. To that.
Well, I don't know. The statement
I
is.
don't think so.
No? Oh,
No.
that's how I understood
I don't
it.
know. The statement is written.
We don't
Makes it
usually
sound
say
like
that.
Okay.
I'm the cheerleader for them or something, but.
No, well, I just thought that you
Rah, rah.
thought the way you stated it, that yes,
No,
they're
I
all
thought I
trying,
was
we're all
just
trying to
letting the-
work together.
We're
I
all
thought I was letting the board
living
know
in
that
town
Okay.
together.
they were working on it. I thought
Alright,
that's what I
where are
said. That's why I'm like, did I say that?
Where are you?
On the second page,
I'd say 35.
2, 3, 4, the fifth
Oh.
thing down.
I need to go back to
So-
page 1 after that, though.
I'm sorry.
So how did you want to reword that?
Just simply that they were working on their new notice of intent and their amended request, their amended notice of intent, amended order of conditions request.
Okay.
Back to page 1.
Mr. Raymond Looney, Kettlebrook, I imagine is 2 words.
Yep.
Nothing else jumping out at me.
Then, is there a motion for the May 8th?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. All right. I'm sorry. Abstention.
Yes, I did abstain.
Thank you.
Yes.
May 22nd.
I'll be abstaining from all of them.
I know you weren't here.
I was watching at home.
My friend watches these on rerun.
A lot of people.
I was like, oh,
Insomnia?
I don't know. He lives on the water, so he probably watches them.
Oh, that's probably why. We're live tonight, so.
I think the syntax under 7 p.m. says after discussion, the board felt the syntax needs to be fixed. After discussion, the board felt the advertisement was placed and the abutters were notified. No one was present, therefore allowed Mr. Philip Henry to proceed. So we need to kind of change that because it doesn't make much sense the way it's written out.
It seems like it's been put through Google Translate and then back and then forth a couple times.
Is that true? Did you do that, Sheila?
Like you put it into Russian and then you put the Russian to Japanese and then you put it back to English.
Gosh, this is a tough crowd on minutes.
Oh, you haven't even
You have
seen.
no
You
idea.
have no idea.
This
This nice
is
compared to the
mild.
way I used to be.
This
I
is
hope you
mild.
buy her something really nice on the appropriate Administrative Assistance Day.
I'll leave that to somebody else.
No,
Yeah,
I think that's
that's
an
a good
excellent
one.
That was in
suggestion
April,
for
wasn't
Dan.
it?
You know.
That was a great joke.
Yeah, I wasn't here that month.
And actually, Sheila is celebrating 5 years with us.
So it's an extra
Congratulations.
Is it
special.
really celebrating?
She's made it this long.
Yes.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
that's in dog years.
Yeah, it just
Okay.
seems like 5 years. No.
Okay.
To her.
So anyway, seriously, now back to being
But
serious
seriously, folks.
for a moment.
Yes. Good
We
invite
need
you.
to fix that.
Yeah.
How about if we just scratch pretty much all of it and just let Mr. Philip Henry proceed with the
You know, I think
discussion for the request?
that's actually not, well, that's a start. Actually, why don't you just take out the whole sentence, or the two sentences, beginning with after and ending with hearing. How's that?
I think there's another line that needs some massaging, not too much further down as
Okay.
well.
Yeah, I think we can
You want me
seriously.
to wipe out that whole thing?
Yeah, because then you
All right.
start with Philip Henry, a civil design group, was present to represent Cumberland Farms.
There you go.
All right.
Okay, so that is out.
Well, you had the discussion because we had the public hearing, we put the cart before the horse on the thing, so that's, we had, he just kind of
Right, we
discussed
advertised it
everything.
without
Remember how it
getting
was
his
all
without
Oh,
us deciding if we would
backwards.
amend it,
That's
and then
why
we
I
should
put
have
that in
advertised
there,
it.
but I don't think we need it.
No, I don't think we need to put it in there.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dan, what's next?
Michael Garland stated the change was relatively minor. The same impacts on the mitigation. An alternate way has been provided with the stormwater, etc., etc. It seems like some strange syntax once again.
Well, you know, once he gets going, it's just kind of like et cetera, here he goes again.
Oh, yada, what, yada, yada, yada? I don't think so, my friend.
I don't think Mike worded it in any way close to that.
Were you here that night? Jeez.
This doesn't
Yeah,
sound
that
like
doesn't
Mike.
sound right.
Okay.
Actually, I can.
Oh my gosh.
I can
Okay, what you
Oh,
hear?
I'm sorry.
I'm just looking at my
Here.
name. Sure, I'm not saying anything.
Make
wrong.
sure you didn't say anything wrong.
Exactly.
At least you didn't put it in
down
quotes,
for someone
Mike.
else's stuff.
All right, all right.
Yeah.
Come on, if you guys want to watch your Bruins game.
I'm trying to figure out the easiest
Not really
way
a fan.
to change
Oh.
this.
Yeah, we know.
It's not my sport.
All right, how about this?
Now if it was a skiing
How about
thing.
I stated that the proposed changes were relatively minor.
That makes sense.
And
Thank you.
just wipe out the rest of it?
Were relatively minor.
Yeah. The impacts of on the mitigation were, the impacts didn't change on the mitigation.
You know, in all honesty, I think it's. I mean, I remember the hearing, and I remember the changes that were made, and I don't think we necessarily have to refer to same impacts on mitigation or the alternate way being provided with the stormwater, because in order to flesh that out, we'd have to put in like 3 more sentences. So I think, and again, this is if the board will agree. I stated the proposed changes were relatively minor, therefore there is no need to file a new notice of intent.
Okay.
That sounds.
I mean, that's the most consequential
Right.
thing
Okay.
that came out of it.
And I'd even cross out as this is a minor amendment because it's understood.
Okay,
Okay?
all right.
How many pages are these minutes?
This one's the longest.
This one's for,
I've got a big font here.
but they're also like a space and a half apart.
Yeah, big font. I think I'm
It's
on
not the
14
font, it's the
font.
spacing.
Make it
Yeah.
easier for people to read.
Yeah, I like big fonts.
Well, it's also the spacing. It's not single space, it's like a space and a half.
Well, this isn't the one you did, though.
No, I didn't do this
The
one.
one you did was like,
And then
it's
actually
like
what,
written like Shakespeare or something.
For God's sake.
after that part we just changed, then it looks like
Right,
you
like
jump
prose.
back
Well, I
to
can't help it, I write that way.
to the beginning. Sheila. No, look
Yes.
at it again. Michael Gar referred to paragraph number 3 in the Wellland program, and it should be policy. Okay.
All right, no,
Oh,
sorry.
wetland program police.
Excuse me.
She said, that's what she did say.
You might have to use the gavel.
Yeah, I might have to.
I mean,
I have to
seriously,
gavel
what
my
you
clerk
did
out
is
of
that
it.
you took
Oh,
the next paragraph is out of order with what happened. Following.
All right, so,
I mean, he's already decided to. So what I would do is I would actually, I would take the whole last paragraph and I would put it after the sentence that reads, "A procedural issue, the applicant was not given approval to file the amendment." Do you see that?
no, where,
Look,
I'm sorry.
this whole paragraph,
Yeah,
this last paragraph
yeah,
needs to go up here. And then I'll be fine.
Oh,
Okay?
Okay?
all right.
Anything else?
Yeah, I cross out on the second page, cross out the first sentence.
You know, I think under our, on page 3, under our friend Pompeia,
Right.
that there's something there about,
Page 2.
yeah.
I think there's more that needs to be added there too.
Yeah, like, there
I
was
think
no-
at least one of us expressed concerns about supporting the dock on cinder blocks, period.
Yeah, and there was no stamped engineered plan. It wasn't,
well, did we discuss that in the hearing?
We didn't discuss it in the hearing,
oh, that's true, we didn't.
so I wouldn't really change that.
She presented her
She was writing down
plan.
what she
And
wanted.
actually, it's covered, if you look on page 3 where it says decisions, it says no as-built plan was, it shouldn't be as-built.
Right,
No-
that's what I was trying to, that's where I was under the
No,
decision. It was no stamped engineered plan,
No
not an
stamped
as-built plan.
engineer.
Thank you.
okay, you see that, Sheila?
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah, that's actually what I was, that's what I was at with, not the hearing.
Okay, so no stamped engineer plan was submitted. NOI is deficient, was deficient on that basis. On that basis. And the board was concerned with the nature of the dock. And then after the comma, as no contractor has been hired to explain the construction of the dock.
As, it's more than no, I think is what he's saying. As.
As no.
As no contractors.
Let's see, so page 3, 755 20 Prospect Street. Sixth
Just one
lot.
yet- Sorry, back on this notice of intent. We didn't issue a denial and a notice of intent that day, did we?
No,
We
no.
continued
We
it.
had a meeting on
Right.
June 5th.
Okay, so don't say that we had a denial and a notice of intent.
No, we
When
had
on that
to,
day?
Now on the notice.
we held that, we met on the 5th because it was too late tonight to issue a decision.
I think what we can say is that we just cross out that sentence where we talk about denial. The
Yeah,
board-
that's all I'm saying. We didn't issue a denial that
No,
day.
we
No,
did
the
not.
board decided to continue this until 6/5/13 at 7:30 for discussion regarding the issuance,
To make a decision.
to make a decision about, on the notice of intent.
Yep.
Go ahead, Dan.
Okay, 755 20 Prospect Street, 6th line. How do you pronounce his name again?
Andrade,
Andrade?
Andrew.
Mr. Andrade explained the mitigation plans 1.7 to 1. Is this replication? What does that refer
I
to?
mean, that sounds like, that almost sounds like bank, doesn't it?
I think that was the replication for that channel.
Uh-huh,
Just needs more
Under the
detail.
wetlands,
It's a
protect-
fragment.
the Auburn Wetlands bylaw.
right.
Yeah, maybe the
so it was the
replication.
replication of the channel?
Mm-hmm,
The replication ratio, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I think replication ratio is better. The replication ratio would be 1.7 to 1?
Or,
Okay. With those changes, I would move to accept the minutes of May 22nd, 2013 as amended.
is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? One from the corner. Okay, that's the end of the agenda. Does anyone have anything else?
That's one thing.
Our next meeting will be June 26th.
Oh, Dan has it.
Yep.
I know the full board's not here, but I would like to have on the agenda what I discussed about giving
Oh.
the chair the authority to communicate with the planner so that this is included in the peer review so that we'll have the information quicker and the applicant will not be delayed.
Okay, so
So
you want
I'd
to
like
put that
that
on
on
the
the
agenda
next.
item?
Yes, I would ask that that be with the board's
That's fine.
approval.
All right.
We don't have to make motions or anything, right?
No.
No, the chair's supposed to set the agenda, so
Okay.
it can go on.
Have the power, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.